What is going on, FA Nation? My name is Justin Fensterman, along with a man who definitely rolls on Shabbos, my little Mike McDougal, Howard Bender, for another edition of Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. What's going on, Howard?
Well, listen, it's been a crazy last couple of days here, but I'll tell you this, my little Lavernius Coles, I am very happy to be back here with you. Getting ready to talk. We got a lot of stuff going on here in the NFL. On top of the fact that Steelers Titans already postponed, they may play it Monday or Tuesday, which would at least still keep it part of this week. But for right now, I've already seen it on ESPN and Yahoo. They're listing these players as a bye week, so you got to hit that waiver wire again, maybe.
I was actually just about to ask you that. Because of this situation, does that mean when it comes to our waivers for this week, we should be staying clear of players of those teams if we have limited bench spots?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're not. I mean, if you're just looking for long-term depth, okay, sure. I don't know who really is out there from the Titans that you're gonna really long term kind of
I've seen
stash.
Corey Davis still out there. I don't want Corey Davis. Trust me, I know, but I have to. We're representing an entire audience here. I don't want him. Trust me. Just like I don't want to try to figure out the Steelers situation with Deontay Johnson hurt, who maybe would get a little bit of a bump. I mean, you're not going to be able to get Ebron in as many leagues. I've still seen him out there in a few leagues as well, even as a stash because you were starting to see the production. But besides that, Howard, I'm not. I mean, I have Chase Claypool in one league in a very deep league. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you're looking for help in the immediate future, no. You can't take that chance. You wouldn't want to do that. But I mean, if it's deeper bench, you're just looking for some depth. Okay, sure, that's not terrible.
No, it's not terrible. Now, you were talking about Yahoo and how they've adjusted everything. What happens, though, if they somehow, because it hasn't been fully ruled out unless you've seen something that's updated in the last half an hour that I haven't, they can still play the game on Monday, correct?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what we're hearing right now. I think Ian Rappaport was reporting that they were going to possibly move it to Monday or Tuesday. If it's Monday or Tuesday, I think all the platforms, ESPN, Yahoo, My Fantasy League, RT, they can keep that all within the sphere of week 4. So you don't have to worry about that. I mean, I don't really think that and anything that's played later than that is already. I mean, it with the Thursday game, it's already week 5. So
Right. You
I
need
think the
that
way they've
waivers day. You need that waivers day. And what you could do is maybe even those Tuesday waiver leagues, you can figure out a way, or these sites can figure out a way to shift them to Wednesday. So at least you can still have your day of waivers. That is if the game does get moved to Tuesday.
the sites, just so we can be clear. I mean, let's face facts, because you look at ESPN and you look at Yahoo and you get what you pay for, and they are not interested in overriding code or anything like that they would have to do in order to make it happen. Now, you might have to in some cases, if the game gets moved to Tuesday, you might have to manually, as a commissioner, retroactively add these points into the live scoring. Both those sites have features that allow for that to happen, but they're not going to change anything around for you. And they're if it's not doable, if they were to turn around and say, well, we're going to make this and that, whatever, the sites are going to be like, the easiest thing that we can do is say no, it's not part of week 4. Sorry, snooze you lose, and move on. But if it's Monday or Tuesday, I think we're still in the clear.
I was never into paying for fantasy sites, not obviously like subscriptions like ours or anything. I'm talking about platforms that you play on. I was never into it before 2020. This year, I have learned just how important it is to be able to customize your league and to be able to get that kind of change to happen under extenuating circumstances. Because now, as someone, Howard, who plays on about collectively 5 leagues between Yahoo and ESPN, I'm not feeling really good about this situation based off what you just said.
No, I mean, listen, again, these are sites that they're really, I mean, it's just because they're not, I mean, they're making money off of maybe some advertising clicks that are sitting there. But, overall, these sites aren't making a ton of money just to keep people there. They're hoping that they lure you in, free fantasy, and then they can start upselling you on, ESPN Plus or some other, Yahoo subscription service that they might have. Bump you up to, like, pay for the Statcaster or whatever they have. I mean, listen, that's what they're doing. It's business for them. For them, I mean, listen, that's the thing, and that's one of the reasons why I'm such a proponent of my fantasy, not my fan of RT Sports. I hate my fantasy. No. But like RT Sports, like these guys legit care, about what's going on with the leagues. They care about customers having a strong experience. That's not something that some of the bigger sites or the free sites allow for. So
they're easy to reach too, which is great. If stuff hits the fan, they're easy to reach, and that to me, the customer service end of it is huge, because I'm sure they have a ton of people going after them, and they're very organized in that regard too. So I am someone that has now seen the light when it comes to being able to have that power to customize your leagues. And if you have to pay a few shekels for that, then that's fine. Whatever it takes to
pass the buck to the league, right? Everybody in your league kicks in $10 so that you can spend $120, $130 for a decent platform. I mean, really, if people in your league start pissing and moaning over that, well, get the hell out of the league.
Yeah, because they're not pissing and moaning over enough things already, Howard. Let me tell you, this is the worst year in the history of fantasy sports to be a fantasy commissioner. We warned you. We warned all of you that this was going to happen. And for those that still jumped into the pool, I have a lot of appreciation. I'm commissioner of not one, but 2 leagues. It's not that easy. And like Howard said, you may have to do some like putting in the scores manually. That might just have to be the case. And that's what you signed up for. And if you want to try to pull something next year where you don't have to pay your fee, your entry fee as commissioner, you get a reduced fee, you only have to pay 50%, and some of the buy-in goes to you for all the work you have to do, that's something that you can negotiate that I'm more open to as of late than I was maybe a few years ago.
Fantasy. My little Padawan, you're learning the ways, and that's good. That's
right.
Definitely good.
I mean, who doesn't want to save a buck, right? I mean, of course I do. But if it means that I get a better quality of the game and able to, especially with the scoring systems, be able to work with that easier, I'll take that over the what I consider easy, user-friendly, free Yahoo. I'm just starting to learn about that. And also with Adam Ronis hanging with me half my life, I feel like, as well, and he's all about that. Between you guys, I'm more open to it, especially because we're dealing with extenuating circumstances in COVID, and we're going to see which leagues are going to be able to keep up with it, the ones you pay for versus the free ones that really don't care. So I'm glad we talked about that, though, Howard. It's important because now we're going through COVID for the first time.
I'm just seeing all these questions on my timeline. What do we do with this? What do we do with that? I'm like, call your provider.
Right.
Contact your provider. Send an email. I don't know. I don't work for Yahoo. I don't work for ESPN. I don't run a platform that does that.
To make that change, like Howard talked about, and I agree with Howard. They're not going to do the crazy coding or anything. They don't want that effort. It's free. But at the same time, you want that change. You want to make sure they're heard. Email them. Go after them. You don't think I want to know? Of course I want to know. We all want to know.
It's not that you don't. It's whether you want to know or not. As a commissioner, you have to know. You have to be able to communicate that to your league. You don't need somebody coming up to you and asking what to do or how's this going to be or anything like that. You want to be proactive and just have a firm answer. Again, you know what? This is what you signed up for to be a commissioner. You thought it all ended on draft day once everybody drafted? No. You've got responsibilities. You should be prepared for it. We told you to be prepared for it. Let's move on. I don't want to talk about anything else other than stupid server platform garbage, crappy customer service type places.
No, and if you know it, that's why you go to fantasyalarm.com, because you get the complete opposite experience there. Let's talk about waivers, though, because we're right in the middle of waivers, Howard. And a lot of questions that I've been getting have been surrounding Rex Burkhead. And this goes back to the old lesson in fantasy sports that we've taught over and over and over again. And even when we cite examples, people still chase the points from last week. Now, when you're seeing a player produce at a high level consistently, that's still on waivers. All of a sudden, that you can believe in. One performance, though, like Rex Burkhead had with 30 plus points, you can't fully chase that with the Patriots run game. We've been trying to figure out this run game since the beginning of time, it seems like, Howard. And still, I'm getting asked how much, when it comes to the percentage of the waiver budget, should you be spending on Rex Burkhead of all people?
Yeah, I mean, what you have to do when you're sitting there and you're setting your waiver claims, and you're organizing how much of your budget you're going to spend. You have to look at the player's long-term value. All right. If you're just looking for a 1 week fill-in, no, I'm not going to sit there and overspend on a guy. If it's using a guy for a number of weeks, like Mike Davis. Jeff Wilson was not Jeff Wilson and Jerick McKinnon were temporary fixes, maybe a week or two at the most, right? Until Raheem Mostert gets back. And then it gets back to normal there. Mike Davis, you knew he was going to be the bell cow for the Panthers for as long as Christian McCaffrey was out. So you put more on him because you're looking at that. A lot of people are sitting there trying to figure out, they're like, well, do I, Nick Foles or Ryan Fitzpatrick this week? And, listen, I love Fitz's matchup this week. Am I going to spend a ton of money on him? No, I'm definitely not. If I'm needing a quarterback for the long term, I might lean Foles just because of the way Trubisky was benched. Now, neither one of them are risk-free because Fitz going to eventually lose out to Tua, and Foles could end up, just losing back handing back the job to Trubisky. So you do have to be careful with that. When we look at guys who are on waivers this week, yeah, you want to go after Rex Burkhead? Sure. But, if you're putting more than 10% of your budget on him, well, then you're ridiculous because you never know when to start him. Justin Jefferson, on the other hand, that's a great pickup because that's the guy who's going to be the number 2 wide receiver. And I talked about this in the watch list actually over here at Fantasy Alarm. When you start looking at schemes and stuff like that, people are all down on Odell Beckham, or they were wondering where the hell this breakout came from Justin Jefferson. And I was like, kind of take a look at the way the offensive schemes are set up and look at what happened last year in Minnesota. For the first 3 weeks, possibly 4 weeks, everybody was like, oh, Adam Thielen sucks. Oh, Stephon Diggs sucks. They're just running the ball. It's run first only. It's only Dalvin Cook. Blah, blah. These receivers are terrible. And then they ended up like trading them or dropping them. And look what happened. Like Diggs went on a tear where it was like 4 or 5 games out of like 6 where he posted over 100 yards. Thielen started racking up the touchdowns. It's going to end up that way too. And we just saw the breakout for Jefferson. Thielen had a great game as well. And the same thing's going to happen over in Cleveland. You're going to see a ton of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And then all of a sudden, a defense is going to come in and they're going to scheme to stop the run. And what does that do? It opens up the passing game. And then all of a sudden, Odell Beckham is starting to get more targets. Like if you don't know how to read the tea leaves over there, read the content at Fantasy Alarm and at least have it explained to you, right? Just blindly asking these questions on Twitter. I don't mean to go on the rant here, but I will go on the rant here because like my Twitter timeline is littered with, oh, should I pick up this guy? Or, oh, who do I do? Or, oh, can you rank these 3 pickups? Do the work. Right. I'm going to stop. Like I've cut back on the amount of time that I've spent on Twitter now, because the bottom line is that now everybody, if you keep spoon feeding people stuff, they're just going to keep taking it. Right. If you make them learn or you teach them how to look for something else, then, eventually they will, because they realize that you're not going to be spoon feeding it to them. Go to read the content on Fantasy Alarm. Look at the weekly rankings. Ronas does the weekly rankings for NFL, right? And he sits there and he updates them daily. He posts them on Tuesday night, and then he's in there every single day tweaking rankings and moving guys around.
Even while on dates, he's in the rankings too.
even when he is on dates, right? Well, listen, sometimes those dates don't work out. Sometimes you're like, damn, I should have swiped left or something. I don't
Yeah,
know. But
he's just bored or she's just bored. Someone's bored. That's why he's in the rankings updating them. But that's a great point that Howard makes here. And you're right, man. I received one of those questions. Rank my 5 tight ends. I'm like, 5 tight ends? Rank your 5 tight ends? You have a tight end store or something? What's going on here? By the way, you also mentioned Justin Jefferson, Odell Beckham Jr. John and Pema, John's producing the live stream today for us. John and Pema and I on Alarm After Hours actually received that question from a caller. He calls and he goes, he explains he's talking about Minnesota, but then he goes, "Can I drop Odell Beckham Jr. for Van Jefferson?" And I'm like, "Van Jefferson?" And then John just jumps in and goes, "Well, I think he meant Justin Jefferson." And I'm like, still, I'm not dropping Odell Beckham Jr. for Justin Jefferson. I'm not doubting Justin Jefferson can't have a solidified role. But why am I dropping Odell Beckham Jr., who I invested a 3rd-round pick for? It makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just it's a very short-sighted way to look at it, and they just, oh well, he's not lighting it up. He's not giving me 100-yard games, he's not giving me 2-touchdown games. You know what? Not a whole hell of a lot of players are. Like, I mean, that's
Right.
that's the funny thing is that there are a lot of players who were taken in the first 3 rounds who are massive disappointments. Take Joe Mixon for example,
Ooh.
right? Like Cincinnati needs to get themselves figured out. They need to figure out the fact that they need to, lean a little bit more on the run. And that's great that Joe Burrow looks so amazing in a hurry up offense and you want to spread it out, 5 wide. But for crying out loud, you're losing games. Your offensive line isn't giving Burrow the protection that he needs. You need to mix it up a little bit. You need to let him, you need to let establish play action or something like that. And you're not going to do it by handing the ball off to Mixon, once or twice every 2 or 3 series and just giving him a 2-yard run up the gut. That's not going to do it.
It's the same thing every single play.
Yeah,
it's the same thing every play. And it frustrates me because I'm not a coach or anything, but I'm kind of scheming. I'm like, when are they going to give this guy something different, make the defense work a little bit? And they're not doing it. These are the same frustrations I had last year with Sony Michel. Sony Michel, it's the same freaking thing every single time. And I'm not getting anything when it comes to yardage, and I'm not getting anything when it comes to production from him. Now, here's the problem with Joe Mixon here. When it comes to trading, awesome buy low guy. Problem is, Howard, I feel like after this great matchup that he has, or supposed great matchup against Jacksonville, that price tag is going to jump, especially if all of a sudden he throws down a 18 to 20 point performance in a PPR, let's just say. Then all of a sudden you're not going to get the deal. And that's based off just one game that's upcoming for him. That's a good matchup.
No, listen, it's a great matchup for him. And yeah, if you're looking to buy low, do it now. Be aggressive and make that trade, and let it happen. If you're a Mixon owner and you have good depth and Mixon's like you're sick of it, so you just put him on the bench, let him have this breakout game, and then you sell him. Like that's how many times do you hear people that are like, oh, this guy's not doing it for me, I'm gonna trade him, right? What are you gonna trade him for? Like what are you getting in return for a guy you took in the 1st round or late 1st round, early 2nd round of your draft, and you're gonna trade him for peanuts? I mean, that's ridiculous. And I think that people, it's buy low, sell high. All right, it's not buy high and sell low. It's not you're not paying retail prices for a guy who sucks. Somebody was trying to trade for Allen Robinson last week. And they were like, yeah, I'm going to give, and they gave, it was 2 players. It was, God, I can't remember who it was. I think it was 2, but it was a 2-for-1 deal. And I'm like, you're paying retail right now. Like, why, if you're going to buy low on him, take somebody on your team who's overachieving and you sell that dude for Allen Robinson. It's amazing how few people understand the fact. And then when the guy breaks out, then they're like too afraid to trade him. And they're like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. No, some idiot's going to believe it. So.
And he was good all along, too. I mean, 18 targets going into week 3. Apparently that's not good enough anymore, and I don't understand why. But oh no, I do understand why, because I've been in this industry for over a decade now, and that's because people focus on the points and not on the game plan. What's going on? The targets over touchdown. We have to see how many looks our receivers, especially, are getting. That's the show me part. Here's an example, Howard, someone who I picked up and I didn't have to pay really anything for, especially with his team now hurt. Cole Beasley. He's still getting targeted. And with John Brown hurt, I'm not saying I'm going to start the guy, but you know what? Free pickup for me right there. Not an exciting name, not a flashy name. I'm not excited about it, but I see the targets with him. I see the situation going on in Buffalo. Maybe he gets a little bit more love. Maybe then, if I'm trying to upgrade, he's the player I tack on in a trade after a couple of weeks of nice production where I could show that he's still getting the targets. And there you go. Now I can make that trade and upgrade at another position. That's the way I see picking up Cole Beasley right now.
Okay, I'll give it to you. I mean,
what
Cole
do you think?
Beasley, he just doesn't do anything for me, you know? Yeah. Like, Cole Beasley's a guy who, you'll put on your bench, and during the bye weeks, maybe if he's got a positive matchup, you're going to end up playing him. But I mean, he went on like a little touchdown run last year that, he like had like 3 or 4 straight games with one. But, you aim for the Cole Beasleys in the world, Fancy. I'll go a little bit high.
No, there are certain situations where I feel it's okay, and it's just for stash purposes. Look at the amount of injuries we've faced thus far this year.
But you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig.
I'm not trying to sell you this pen, Howard Bender. Let me tell you. Let's talk about Allen Lazard, because I am a huge Marquez Valdes-Scantling guy. I'm becoming less of a Marquez Valdes-Scantling guy, but I'm not out of the boat with him yet. I still think that he will have games where he's a bit more productive. When it comes to Allen Lazard, though, and from what we've seen with the Packers, you need a receiver. How much of your budget are you comfortable spending on him? Versus if you're just looking at him as a stash option, you don't need the receiver necessarily, then how much of your budget would you put in on him?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is actually a great example, Fancy. This is actually a great example because Allen Lazard, right? All right, so first week, 4 targets, second week, 5 targets, third week, 8 targets, right? Okay. Very interesting. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, first week, 6 targets, second week, 7 targets, third week, 4 targets. What is the one thing that both these players have in common?
Aaron Rodgers is their quarterback.
What else do they have in common?
I'm going to say that they are on the Green Bay Packers.
They're both behind Davante Adams in the pecking order for targets.
Right.
And when Davante Adams played in the first 2 weeks of the season, who saw more targets, Marquez Valdes-Scantling or Allen Lazard?
MVS.
Okay, now you take Davante Adams out. The opposition's throwing their better cover corner and floating some extra coverage. Whose way? The number 2 guy, MVS, or the number 3 guy, Allen Lazard?
MVS. Makes sense.
See?
It does make sense.
Unagi.
Yeah, I'm not out on him. I did not drop MVS in one league. But now Allen Lazard is out there. So I'm trying to think now, when it comes to how much I'm willing to put on him, I wasn't going beyond 10% anyway.
Right.
Now, I was kind of shocked that people gave up on him just like that. To be honest, he was what, an 11th round pick, would you say, in 12-team leagues?
Ooh, Lazard? Yeah. I mean, listen, he was super late, and Valdes-Scantling was free. And then what did we see, excuse me, in the first 2 weeks of Packers games? That it was MVS who was actually winning out on that job. Lazard's there during 3 wide receiver sets, no doubt about it. But when they're playing 2 wide receiver sets and you got those 2 tight ends in there like Tanyan and Mercedes Lewis or Sternberger, and they're only going with 2 wide receivers, it's MVS who's on the field over Lazard in that, when Davante Adams is playing. So if I'm looking at the waiver wire right now, yeah, Lazard is a nice pickup, but is Davante Adams going to miss Monday night's game?
Right. That's the big question.
And even if he plays Monday night, you still have, it's the matchup against the Falcons. So people are going to be, lured into Alan Lazard. So, I mean, listen, if I'm looking at him, maybe 10 to 12% because of what his matchup is this week. But if you're sitting there and you've got MVS and Alan Lazard on Monday night and you're deciding between the two, I'll say this, man, if Devontae Adams is in the game, I'm starting MVS. If Devontae Adams is out, well, then I'll probably start MVS anyway.
And that is why we prepare ahead of time. You'll start MVS anyway.
Well, because I mean the Falcons are just trash. I mean they're just really disgusting, and they don't even have a decent cover corner to put on anybody there. So
that's over.
Unbelievable how crappy that team is.
Oh, yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Trust me. I mean, having their offense, as someone who has Calvin Ridley in 50% of his leagues, I'm loving life right now. Matt Ryan, a few of those leagues as well. I'm loving life, but man, this team, they just can't finish, man. They can't get the job done.
It is unbelievable. And I'll tell you, man, it's going to be really interesting this week. I was talking to Craig Mish about this yesterday. He doesn't see in this whole era of COVID, he doesn't see any coaches getting fired. I'm like, how is Dan Quinn still employed right now? Because ever since they choked in the Super Bowl, right, and they gave up that lead, okay, it's just been one of those things where they can't hold the lead. They can't get to that next step. They can't take it to that next level. And this defense is so bad. And the offense has been so good that, if Dirk Cutter, who is a very subversive guy, if he doesn't have that offense humming against Atlanta and the Packers stumble somehow, I mean, or if he doesn't have them humming against the Packers and they don't put up any points, they could get rid of Quinn and then turn to Dirk Cutter and be like, all right, well, you've already got your offense here installed, so you've got head coaching experience. Why don't you take the reins?
There is another coach, by the way, that could potentially get canned within the next 48 hours, Howard Bender. Oh, and it's a coach you're very familiar with.
They won't fire Gase. Where are you hearing that?
I thought I had seen a report, and I'll go back and look at it. I thought I had seen a report, so I'm not confirming nor denying that he could potentially be on the hot seat. I have also seen our tight end whisperer, when he put out tight ends that you can look to pick up were available, he specifically wrote Chris Herndon, and then in parentheses, if Gase is fired.
Yeah. That's a guy who I just don't see getting canned. At least not right now. They brought in Joe Douglas, and Gase was part of the hiring process. I think Joe would probably say, you know what, we'll just finish out the year and we'll move on and do it that way. It's just not. Ugh.
Yeah, it's bad. We won't talk about this anymore.
Please, right?
Let's talk about one situation that I'm having a little bit of a struggling time with, and that's because I have a lot of Jack Doyle, and we've seen Mo Alley Cox go into the mix, and then we saw Jack Doyle be active and not get targeted. At this point, where do you stand on someone like Jack Doyle and in lieu with Mo Alley Cox as a potential add as well? Because they're each other's competition. We've seen it before with Eric Ebron there. Mm-hmm. But how do we handle this situation regarding both tight ends in Indy?
Well, listen, Mo Alley Cox could end up being that Ebron role where he starts getting all those red zone looks. He's bigger. He's more durable. And he's a solid pass catcher. So I could definitely see that. Doyle being that move the chains kind of a situation. I didn't look at the snap counts yet for what Doyle played in comparison to Mo Alley Cox, but listen, I don't think Doyle, considering all the injuries and stuff, is really anything special. And when they're using a two tight end set, yeah, I might lean towards Mo Alley Cox a little bit more. Now, he's not going to have the full-blown targets that you want, especially if they are going to continue to use Jack Doyle. So, a little bit of shine comes off of Mo Alley for that, but, even more shine comes off of Jack Doyle. But, again, the guy can't stay healthy at all. So, I'm hoping that, I'm not hoping for an injury that would debilitate the guy, but
right.
just enough to take him out of the equation a little bit.
Yes, and I just want to say this too. T.Y. Hilton, this is your time, man. This is how many players have to get hurt for you to finally put up a good, solid, productive game? How many more players have to get hurt? It's got to happen at some time. And Howard, I'm sorry if I'm screaming and yelling very loudly. I'm very passionate about this stuff, you know. I'm still riding the T.Y. Hilton train, mainly because of the injuries. I have been pretty disappointed overall. At some point, this guy's got to go off. Half his team is almost out.
Dude, I want to see a video of like his grandma showing up in like, like a shower cap and a moo with like a belt in her hand. Because when he dropped that touchdown pass 2 weeks ago, she called him and she like called him to rail him for dropping passes and stuff. It was like this big joke that happened. And then he turns around and he eats it here for week 3 also. So I want to see grandma show up and put a whooping on this guy, that maybe that'll wake him up a little bit.
Let's go, Grandma Hilton. Let's go help out our fantasy teams. Make sure you catch Howard Bender on Fantasy Alarm on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio all week long. And tonight, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. Howard, it's you and the Piacenti tonight, right?
Me and Jen Piacenti. We got lots of stuff to talk about. The watch list, spreads and totals on games, running back handcuff report. And maybe, just maybe, we'll convince Jen to sing a little bit for us on the show.
Ooh, Jen hates singing, though. That's the problem, Howard. Jen absolutely hates singing. So,
no, you know what? I think she absolutely loves it. I think if there's one thing that Jen actually hates, it's when her dad texts her in the middle of a live stream for fantasy advice. Then she goes off. Then she goes bananas.
Listen,
and she hates bananas.
The Piacentis are on a 2-game winning streak in the Alarm After Hours Late Night Freaks Listener League. So there's a reason he's asking. He wants this title. It's his debut league. So with that, Howard, you can catch me with Adam Ronis on Alarm After Hours tonight, 1 to 3 a.m. Eastern. We will be putting on our detective caps and going through those messy running back situations around the NFL and see if there's a resolution, see if we can crack the code, or if we're going to be just a big ball of confusion, which is absolutely possible. Cough, cough, New England Patriots. For Bender, I am Fensty. We thank our guy, John and Pemba, the glorious one. And hey, fantasyalarm.com, the family is always with you because we always dominate. There isn't any other option. We just win.